Gold is falling and stocks are rising, all caused by the upcoming arrival of several vaccines announced by at least 3 laboratories. Many had announced that the discovery of a vaccine was a marker of the end of the crisis. So, do we really see the end of the tunnel? Can we sell our gold and buy shares to take advantage of this new bull market? Come on, let's go. Let's start with these vaccine stories. Are the ads that have been made by Pfizer, Moderna, and Sanofi real or fantasy? 2 important things. 1. Vaccine development is first and foremost about science, not about money. The economic dimension can, of course, accelerate or slow down vaccine research and deployment, but even so, at the core, it takes a scientific discovery to find a vaccine. For example, for the AIDS virus, a vaccine has been searched for decades and has not been found. Yet this is not for lack of having injected billions. Between 2000 and 2018, we are talking about $15 billion. This is not insignificant. In fact, it is interesting to remember that at the time, on April 23, 1984, the Secretary of State for Health, Margaret Heckler, announced that a vaccine against AIDS had been discovered and that within 2 years we would have as many as we wanted. So yes, although these 2 viruses have some things in common, they are quite different since our CoV SARS-2 mutates much slower than AIDS. This makes it potentially easier to vaccinate, but it is also possible that it could stick to us like the seasonal flu, with variants that come back again and again from one season to the next. It is therefore important to understand that today there are 2 main avenues for vaccines. The old vaccines resulting from Pasteur's work. You weaken the virus or kill it and then inject it. Your immune system trains to hit it without hurting itself, and you are ready for battle if you come across the real virus in top shape. It works pretty well because we've saved a huge amount of people with it. But the drawback is that if the virus mutates, you have to go through the whole process again because your immune defenses are not working against the new version. That's why, in the case of the flu, the vaccine works more or less well, depending on the year. Well, since these vaccines are well known and have far fewer side effects than the lives they save, it's not so bad. It's better than nothing and it's cheap. And then there are the new high-tech versions of vaccines. We stop injecting dying viruses. We try to explain directly to the immune system what it has to do. Right now, the focus is on messenger RNA technology. There, it is not at all the same know-how. In the laboratory, we make a small piece of the virus called RNA, and we inject this RNA for the immune system to cut its teeth on. The advantage is that RNA vaccines are not, or much less, afraid of mutations in a virus, so they are more effective. The problem is that we don't know about these vaccines. They have never been used on a large scale. So potentially, we don't know the long-term consequences. That's why, usually in medicine, we test on small groups of people who are already very sick or who have a lot to lose in the short term, and then we see what happens in the long term. After 2 to 5 years, we tell ourselves that we are beginning to have a good idea of the risks involved in this or that treatment. This is called evidence-based medicine. It is important to understand that we can't do it any faster because biology and medicine are 2 scientific subjects that we don't really understand the consequences of what we do because the human body is very complex. So you make hypotheses, you test on animals, then you test on people who are going to die or who are in urgent need of treatment. And then you expand more and more if it works at each step. That's why medicine takes a long time. That's also why you can't shorten the time frame of science without taking risks that you can't measure. So, when a virus emerges in late 2019 and billions of doses of one or more experimental vaccines using technology that has never been used before are announced for distribution after just 1 year, you have to be aware that you are taking literally incalculable risks. You don't know what you're exposing yourself to. Maybe we'll be lucky or maybe we won't. So who wants to be first? Knowing that COVID disease has a very low mortality rate, difficult to assess the risk-benefit balance. That is why all our leaders are announcing that it will be distributed as a priority to fragile people. If this could be enough, It would be a good thing for them because a health scandal will be very difficult to bear if it concerns people over 70 years old rather than young children of 5 years old. And at the same time, since everyone has to be sent back to work quickly, our leaders believe that it is worth the effort. In short, all this to say that yes, if we accept that we have one or more vaccines that work and they do not cause more problems than they solve, then we will be able to start the end of the health crisis. And that is the scenario that the markets are buying now. And that's where I come to the second burst. The crisis of the anti-COVID measures is the economic crisis. Once the virus is defeated, as it will be one day, we will be faced with our old demons that will have gathered a lot of steam as a result of the economic measures being deployed to fight the pandemic. And here the news is not good, because we are faced with a major dilemma. Either the central banks stop supporting the economy and a large number of companies go bankrupt, and we risk triggering a deflationary debt spiral in the style described by economist Irving Fisher. Either the United States and Europe continue their support measures at the risk of triggering an inflationary or even hyperinflationary spiral, or very strong social movements, or if the police do their job well and our leaders succeed in maintaining order in the country, thanks to increasingly liberticidal and authoritarian regimes, then the exchange rates of the dollar and the euro will end up falling against Asia in particular. It is important to understand that our current economic problems are not due to the pandemic. The pandemic is just a problem catalyst. The root of the U.S. problem is a structural trade deficit. The U.S. consumes more goods and services than it produces. In addition, the weight of the government in the economy continues to increase. If you are a 0% totally liberal government and a 100% communist government, then the U.S. has become more communist than liberal since the crisis of the anti-COVID measures. The problem with a high degree of government influence is that there are fewer and fewer people producing to pay taxes and more people living on taxes. You realize that in the end, it can't work. Finally, it is clear that the crisis in the anti-COVID measures has set a trend, but that this trend was already there and has been there for a long time. So yes, the problems will come faster, but those problems would have come a little later anyway. And Europe, then? Does it suffer from the same problems as the USA? Well, no. It's a bit different because if you look at the European Union as a whole, its trade balance is positive, and the situation looks pretty nice. In terms of public expenditure as a percentage of GDP, it's the same thing. This indicator is not too bad. We are at about 40%. But then what's the problem? Well, the concern is that the European Union doesn't exist. It's not a country. If you propose to an unemployed French worker to go and find a job in Lithuania, you might not have many candidates because they are not the same countries. Our unemployed workers in France will prefer to become poor and suffer in silence or take pitchforks and revolt. So, since the European Union doesn't exist, and like all political constructions made of odds and ends, it will end up exploding, and everyone will find themselves dealing with their own problems. From this point of view, France has a deplorable weight of government, which has largely had to exceed 60%, and a chronic trade deficit because we are currently living beyond our means to feed a whole class of pests in the family of the high civil service. It is not the salaries of the senior civil servants that are expensive in themselves. It is above all the damage they do when they try to think about imposing stupid laws on us, or when they duck in front of problems that are too complicated for them politically speaking. France is led by those who are hiding without courage. See you soon for new videos. Ciao.
Thank you so much for watching. If you like my videos, please subscribe and don't forget to hit the bell if you want to be notified of the next episode. And if you want to invest in the stock market over the long term or diversify your financial portfolio, I'm offering you an analysis of the 8 European star stocks to have. Thanks again for watching and have a great day.